we have just expanded our point of view to be open-minded for just all the things. And through the through our own individual journeys on this path, we have reached out into I would say we've reached out into the quantum field, but really we're just reaching out into, you know, Google and Instagram and YouTube and
The quantum field of Google and Instagram.
seriously.
We're still expanding. Yes, that's okay. By the way, I want to point out that instead of getting my nails fixed today, I chose to talk to you. I
Oh,
know. You're welcome. So
you've
now
inspired me actually, because when I do my nails, I'm going to do blue.
let's like channel our throat chakra healing together.
Oh,
Yay.
I love it.
I think it would be helpful if we like focus our attention on something.
We're only
What are
this,
we talking
we're not
about?
even two in. We're only like 1.25 in, and you're already talking about we need focus. Wasn't that the whole thing that was like holding us back, was because we were waiting for like the perfect this and to format it this way and just do the shit and have some fun and talk about whatever, and it'll come together the way that it's supposed to. Vinny
Mhm.
even said that to you, right? That it will become whatever it was supposed to be in
Yeah, a lot of
time.
what Vinny told me was stop worrying so much. It's fine.
Yeah.
Just have fun, which is honestly what I need to hear all the time. Just have fun.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know. Why do we take this life so seriously? I was talking to somebody about that after my Orange Theory workout yesterday, and she was like, I was suicidal back in June, and now I wake up every morning and I love my life. She's like, I'm excited to go to bed at night because I'm so excited for the next day. I'm like, what am I missing out that this girl has evolved so much with all of her like spiritual and physical healing, and here I am thinking that, making judgments like, oh, maybe, not to say I'm more enlightened. I've been sharing with her a lot of my understandings and my truth and, helping her to be more grounded as she's starting to let in more light and more truth and be okay with it, because it's hard to make that transition. And that's all I ever want to do is just teach and support. But then I started getting kind of like judgmental of myself, where I'm like, I'm no better than anyone else. I'm struggling too. Just because I might have light to share and an experience that I've embodied that I can teach somebody, that's great. I mean, that's what I'm supposed to do. It's even in my gene keys, but that doesn't mean that I have other aspects figured out. Why am I not waking up in the morning excited to start my day? If anything, I'm hitting snooze 5 times over and just wanting to sleep until 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning because I can and my body wants it. Right? And so I'm like, I need to shift. If this is all energy, I need to start making some conscious decisions about how I'm moving into my day and what I'm giving. Or maybe it's just I don't know what I'm supposed to give. And I think maybe that's what it is I'm not sure on my direction right now. And so there's so many opportunities in front of me, but I'm like, I don't know if I want that one. I don't know what sets my soul on fire. I haven't figured it out yet. So maybe that's why I'm not waking up every morning just excited to start my day.
Hmm. The thing is, when we start asking why, there's a question behind the why. That why is guarding the real thing. It seems like asking, why is this happening? Why am I this way? Is actually a distraction from the truth. It's another one of those games the brain plays to go around in circles. But the truth
Mhm.
is actually in answering what is needed, what is wanted, and what is needed. So the why is because you're ignoring the thing. And the thing is over here, and it's a lot simpler than we think it is. Are those basic needs met? Our needs are so simple. And to integrate the emotional and mental and physical and spiritual aspects of ourselves really just takes an awareness and a tuning in. So it's the tuning in to what is there that is not being presented, what is there that is not being attended to, and attending to that thing is what actually then exudes the peace and the light. You just said you need more sleep. You need less rush, you need more grace, you need less judgment. These things that you need are only things that you can give yourself. A more simple awareness of, oh, like I am actually love. I am actually divine. I am filled with light, and just that feeling is enough to wake up excited about the day. That
Mhm.
remembering of who we are.
Yeah, I think it's this constant visual of me looking outside of myself to determine that I'm in a successful place to step into the manifestation of what I am desiring. And if I don't see that externally, if there are things that are still not the way that I want them to be externally, then I feel like I haven't arrived.
Mm.
And I think I need to recognize that that's an illusion, right? Because in retrospect, that's all a reflection. Everything is a reflection of what we see or how we feel or what we think. And so it's this shift in my mindset because my heart and everything it's there. Like my soul is aligned. I can feel it, but I'm playing this game. It's like I haven't mastered this 3D aspect of me yet, where like I was mentioning earlier today with the gut goddess, and we were talking about the nervous system and her awesome post that I loved about just looking at the truth of, what is causing stress and chaos within me. Like, and, my job, my relationship, how I'm taking care of myself and showing up for myself, my perfectionism, right? And we get lost in all of those things. And it's the external aspect of who we are. Saying yes to everybody, feeling like we're allowing their expectations and ideals to be placed upon us, and caring too much what people think. And we end up letting that dictate the acceptance of how well we're achieving success or being seen as successful, because we all want to make an impact and we all want to be seen and acknowledged and loved and appreciated. But when we're looking externally for that and we're not giving it internally, we're always at a deficit. And I thought I had that figured out. I'm like, oh, I give myself a lot of self love. I laugh at myself. I don't get upset about things easily. I love to dance in the kitchen. Like, I listen to high vibe music, but then I realize, yeah, I do all those things, but I'm also really damn hard on myself too.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of a balancing act of making sure that we're always checking in on that spiritual, emotional, physical, mental aspect, and kind of like, where's the level? Is it a little bit higher on the mental ego side and a little bit lower on the heart side, or am I just aligned and balanced across the board, and I'm not letting the aspect of this thing in life or in the world really define me and
Mhm.
determine, where I'm good or where I'm whatever. So,
Yeah, it's so hard to find that line. I mean, especially since we were raised with a strict religion. Someone asked me that. They said, "Were you raised strictly?" I said, "I don't know what else to compare it to. I guess my life was different than my friends. I had more
mm,
rules, different expectations." But there is definitely the thing that happens where then you don't know exactly what is yours and what is someone else's,
mm,
right? What am I trying to put out my own energy, or am I just like converting something else, right? As a replication of something that I received and then putting it back out. And that's not the kind of creator or vessel that I want to be, to just regurgitate what's being given to me. I I want to appreciate what's there, while also like that discernment piece again, like learning what is mine and where I end and other people begin. Well, now I'm empathic. And so I do struggle with that merging and blending. Um, but then I'll feel like, I know you too, like you kind of get a sense of what people want from you. And so then you're here to provide, you're here to serve what that feels like is needed. And you get lost. You get lost in it.
Mhm.
And then the who am I and who is my ego? And then especially with kids too, and in relationship, we're in all these situations where we just are swimming in a sea. I just want everyone to feel loved, but it's not my responsibility to make everyone feel loved. I can access the love and I can still love people, but there's this part of me that has to make them feel loved. Like
Mhm.
I, I want to help and I want to be of service. And I'm never quite confident that I am. There first comes the process of the individuation, like who am I apart from everybody? But then turns into this unity and oneness, like this realization that like we are all pieces of God and we all have a special light to share. And
Mhm.
my light is an important part of all of it. Right.
Mhm.
I got off track from what you were saying.
No, I don't think you did at all. I
Okay.
think you built off of it, and I thought it was lovely. It made me think about a couple of different podcasts that I've listened to recently of different channels and mediums, and you listen to those stories, and everybody has their past life in terms of like how they grew up or how they were raised or what religion or belief they were taught, and
You have a
then
childhood as a past life. Yeah.
oh my gosh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So
At
interesting.
this point,
Yeah.
right? I mean, once you begin this, it's a path of spiritual progression. It moves so fast that you look back and you're like, whoa, I've completely, not that I've disassociated from it, but it's like I don't go there anymore. Like it seems so far, like long ago and so far away that if I wanted to really sit down in deep thought, yeah, I could go back to how I felt as a child and, really, really meditate and understand, what I might have been experiencing or the bliss of the memory and stuff. But which me, I've always lived in the past, which is why I take pictures and videos and I have thousands and thousands of files on my phone. But I find myself journeying back there less and less and less as I continue to expand spiritually because it's not that I am excited about the future. It's just I'm excited to just keep learning.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just want to absorb truth. And the discernment piece is missing in the world externally. But then when you start really looking and paying attention to people on an individual basis, they are trying to use their discernment. They really are because they're trying to navigate through this journey and they know that it's difficult just as we all do. And if you could sit down and have a personal conversation with probably anyone, they'd be way more open and vulnerable to tell you, like, I don't know what I'm doing, or I feel like this speaks to my soul, but I can't figure out how to get there. Or like, I don't agree with what's going on in the world, but my family or my friends this or my coworkers that, and so I can't say anything because I feel like I'm going to be judged or I'm the outcast and I mean, this is exactly who this podcast is for, are those people that are finding themselves out in the world where they're like, I know that there's a spiritual, emotional aspect of me and this energetic aspect of me, but then I also have this body and this brain that's telling me and making me feel all these things. And I don't know, I don't know how to bring it all into balance and understand it all. And it's really we think we have so many balls to juggle when in reality all we need to do is actually focus on the spiritual energetic aspect of our beings, and that actually fills the bucket for the physical, quiets the mental, and supports the emotional, right? So when you start understanding that we're moving into an era of extreme energy work, that is actually spirituality. And so the spiritual awakenings, or the expansion of spiritual awareness, is more prevalent in the world today. And so a lot of people are willing to be a lot more honest because they can feel it. They're more in tune with it. Like
Mhm.
this is the age of Aquarius, right? It's the dawn of the light, and there's a massive shift going on in the world right now. And so you and I were drawn to this at the same time, which totally makes sense.
Mhm.
And even though everyone has their own different path, I mean, the universe will bring you what you're ready for. The student appears when the teacher is ready. And a lot of times we're on our own journey as a student being taught by other people that are ready to receive us.
Mhm.
And then we then will shift in that position, and other people will need to learn through us
Mhm.
because we've been embodying that.
Mhm.
And so it's really neat to see where you are on this path now in comparison to a year ago, where now you're stepping on and you're saying, I'm just going to have trust. I'm going to have faith. I've worked through all the emotions of this over the last year, which
Mhm.
is a manifestation of itself, because look at how much you've been able to do with your own health. Like, that's
Mhm.
insane to me. That's energy work that you've been doing to heal your own physical body. And you can see it. I mean, you're glowing, you have more energy, like you literally finished your bug project. Like,
Mhm.
you completed it. Like, you faced that fear and you stepped into that. And so it makes sense that you're going to be stepping into all these other things that are meant for you on this journey, with this highest intention, because now that's like this massive awareness that you have for just all the goodness and all the light, because you're just shifting and sifting through the filter. Like, you have this just
Mhm.
incredible filter. And same thing with me too. So that's the discernment, is the filter.
Yeah, it is a really exciting time. Whenever you say age, or anyone says age of Aquarius, I think of how dad had those karaoke videos, and we would play them on the TV and then sing along, and the words would bounce like we do.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
Venus. I'm in Age of Aquarius was one of them. Yeah, so it is. I mean, it's an exciting time. It's an exciting time to be us. And
Hmm.
I like that's what I need more than anything, is just this energy of expansion and excitement and joy and laughter and fun and experimentation. That's a big one, because that's what learning looks like, and growth
Hmm.
looks like, is just trying new things and seeing how they work. And so this experiment here of this podcast, where we're actually recording our conversations and instead of just letting them float into the the universe, is cool, because it's another level of sharing who we are and being seen. And that's
Hmm.
my one of my big things, is to be seen. Like, I have these these parts of me, like I want to hide away and I want to be on stage. Like, I want people to know who I am, but I also want them to leave me the hell alone. Like, I want like
Can relate.
I want you to love me and I want you to stay away from me. Like, I just can't find this balance. And that's the way it's supposed to be. Like, I'm supposed to be that way. And it's so confusing. And that's in my gene keys, is confusion and doubt and like this. But then the gift in the shadow of confusion, or is it doubt, is the gift of inquiry and truth. And then, like, there's a path, if I just, in embracing that this is who I am and the way I go through the world, I can actually find that there's truth in everything. And I do believe that. I think
Mm.
there's truth in every person's different perspective. I think there's truth in every um, opposite thing in the universe. Like, it's all truth and it all just is. And that's why it's so easy for me to to take in new ideas and to listen to people and really be curious about everything is because I think there's truth everywhere to be found and discovered. And the challenge that I face is seeing that there is truth to be discovered within me, right? It's not just the grace of giving grace to everyone and everything around me, but turning that inward and allowing myself to also be truth, right? In whatever form I am expressed in. And and then it's over identifying with like, oh, who this me is. And so then the letting go of all that I think I am and all that I think I knew, why that is such wise advice is because then the truth is underneath all the layers of conditioning and programming and
Mhm.
those intrusive thoughts of, you know, of like, oh, they don't like me, or they, I'm not, I'm not good enough. I'm not presenting well enough. I'm not communicating clearly enough. But then the truth is underneath all of that. It's like behind the door. We do all these things to protect ourselves, and they're so painful. Like there's so much pain in this, in the pretending and the masking and the avoiding and the shifting. And it seems like it will be so painful to open the door and let everything in. People might not like it. There is judgment, there's attack. These are real things in the world. But what is more painful? It feels to me like it's more painful to keep that door shut than
Mhm.
than it could ever be to open it. And
Yeah.
to learn how to then, it's just a skill. It's learning a skill, right? Of of understanding what is there. Does that make sense? Of seeing,
Yeah, absolutely.
navigating what is there. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everything that you said is your own answer to your Marco Polo to me this morning. Like
Um,
you literally, it was like you just channeled your higher self, giving you every answer that you needed to sit with and reflect upon with the things that you were struggling with this morning that you were talking to me about in Marco Polo.
it's funny. I don't even know what I just said. What did
Yeah, no,
I
I'm
say?
so freaking glad that we recorded that. And I'm just sitting
Right?
back and I'm just like, okay, this is, yeah, I'm just here for it. Like I just
Mm,
love watching it because it really is, it's so expansive in such a way that, but it's already there. And it's like, this is the experience we get in this life that we have the ability to, like I hear channelers and mediums say this all the time, that we have the our own ability to channel. It's just like you said, it's a skill, but we learn how to be more intuitive first. And this is exactly the path that you have been following. Me too, but I've been like scattered all over the place because I'm ADHD or ADD and I just want to learn all the things, and then I do other different weird ways of processing. But this is exactly why you felt compelled to reach out to Stacy and Nims, because they that is the next step for you.
mhm.
Working with them, doing your Akashic record reading, there's a reason why that resonated with you. And I know I've told you before that for me, it's like I've sat with it and I'm like, oh, that'd be really cool to do Akashic records or past life regression or go under hypnosis and like go back to, a life that I might have lived before. It'd be so cool, right? But for me, I personally just, I don't care what I did in a past life because I'm so present. I feel like I need to be so present because I'm very easily distracted. And unless it serves me to know something about my past, I don't even want to call it my past, right? Because I mean, time is relative, right? But like, unless it serves me to know an aspect about my soul growth experience in another life, and how that can help me now, that is what I would want. Is what nugget can I implement in this embodiment to help me really remember and plug in that little like thing into this machinery to say like, like a download and like an actual download that's like, oh my gosh, that helps me so much because I know my purpose,
Mm.
right? But then it's almost like in a way, to some people it might even be like it's a form of cheating, right? But then when you look at it, it's like, no, it's not. Yeah. What would be the whole point of like having spirit guides and like being able to connect to my own intuition and my higher self and to be able to like be part of the divine that is all knowing and intelligence? It's like, it's not about it feeling like I'm meant, this life is supposed to be hard. And that's the thing that we've conditioned ourselves, is to believe that in order to learn the lesson, we have to go through some traumatic experience. And
Mm.
that is actually what we are here to learn, isn't how we need to experience life. And that is the conditioning that I'm trying to break, that you are stepping into
Hmm.
beautifully.
Well, thank you. Thank you. The
Mhm.
funny thing is, though, I feel like we've gone through enough trauma. Like, those are the lessons. Like, if we could just learn the lessons of the trauma that we already had, we don't have to create more trauma,
Right.
right? I just got off the phone with Stacey and Nims. They did my Akashic reading, and I'm doing a mentorship with them. The Akashic Records are something that have always fascinated me. And I've been wanting to do a reading ever since I first heard about them a year ago, is when I remember walking through the woods listening to how to channel the Akashic Records and just thinking it was so cool. So it's been a good year since I first thought, and it took a lot of courage actually for me to finally do it.
I want to know, because you're the one who found Stacy
Yeah.
um
Nims.
and Nims, and you had shared an Akashic reading with me from them that was when Nims just started randomly doing them at the beginning of the month. It was one of his first
Yeah.
ones, and it
Yeah.
was profound. And
So,
I remember listening to it on my drive in the car, and I was just like, oh my gosh. And I sent it to Chad, and Chad was like, I don't know what that was, but that connected to my soul in a way. Thank you. I needed that.
oh my gosh, yes. They're so
And that's
powerful.
when I started listening to them. And they have an amazing podcast.
The Spiritual Journey podcast with Nimesh Radia and Stacey Brown. Yeah.
And how did you find that podcast?
How do I find anything?
The universe?
Right? Yeah, it's just put in front of me. It's, yeah. Some call it an algorithm. I call it divine intervention.
Mhm.
I don't know. Yeah. I really do ask for guidance quite a bit and then try to trust whatever comes in front of me.
Mm. Yeah.
It's the discernment though that I'm learning. I can't just take in anything that comes in front of me.
Yes. Yeah.
Mhm.
There's a lot of need for discernment right there in the world.
I mean, I would like to go into the Akashic Records and see our soul contract. Like, oh, it would be
Yeah.
like, we knew it. I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. Like, we were supposed to do all these things together. But what I was going to say is that I really don't think there is a thing that you could even go into your records and find that would make everything click. It's not
Mhm.
that it wouldn't be cheating, it's that it would be too unfulfilling almost. Like it defeats the purpose for there to be some little button on the machine that you're just spending your whole life searching for, right?
Mhm.
Like the button would be recognizing your own divine nature and learning to feel love, that you are loved, that you are loved, that love is all around, and just emanating that. Like that would be the button. And you don't need anyone to tell you that. And the thing that I've learned is every time I search for an answer and then I find what I think is going to be the answer, it's something I already knew.
Mhm.
Even today on our call, there were so many times where I asked a question, even, okay, I asked, what is my role I don't know why I asked this. I said, what's my role in working with kids? Where am I supposed to be working and helping? And the answer I already knew. The answer was you're supposed to actually just be focusing on you right now and what you need and what's going to help you transition into your new space. And then you'll naturally start helping mothers, and then you'll help them help their children. I already knew that. Why did I ask that question? It's because I doubted myself for a moment and I felt a little lost. But the records really seem like they kind of just redirect you back to your own knowing, and it's holding on to that knowing. That's the button, because you might get it for a second, but then if you don't hold on to that vibration or that frequency, it's just gone again, and you're going to be asking the same question 2 months from now, right? The trick is holding on to that remembering and that knowing.
Yeah, I love that. That's beautifully said.
I mean, I'm thinking of people who, like, I was trying to, Mark and I were talking about psychics, because I was like,
Mhm.
I started out by saying, Joseph Smith, like, if he wrote the Book of Mormon, he channeled it, right? And he had psychic abilities and he was like a treasure hunter. Like, he was into the mystical and magical. I was like, I think it'd be fair to call him psychic if he did
Mhm.
things. And Mark really didn't like that word because of those 1-800 call a psychic people
Right.
on late night TV in the 90s. Like,
Right.
he thinks that they're a scam. And I said, well, there's scam artists in religion too. Like, they're just going to be everywhere. But the the trick is, one, discernment, but then also people go to these psychics. They might be the real deal, but it just feels icky because just that they're telling you things you already know, or things that are just meant to guide you back to yourself. And that's so unsatisfying because that takes work. So they'll stay in
Mhm.
business because people are like, how do I find my one true love? Love yourself. Oh, that's not working. So they go back. And the answer is
Mhm.
always, so you're throwing your money away, seeking for something that you already have.
Mhm. Yeah, that makes so much sense. I would say I have realized that I have to change my language when I'm talking to people. It's like a new age spiritual religious sort of language. And so a lot of times I don't even use the word God and I'll just say universe. But I have gotten comfortable with saying that, like, today downstairs near the elevator, I met a woman that lives here in the apartment, and I told her that she says, "Wow, you guys are settling in pretty well into your new place. Like, this is an amazing place for your son to be." And I said, "I know." I said, "The universe just, brought us here, and I wanted to be on the side of the apartment that faced the trees because I didn't want to look over the parking lot." And I said, "But then I realized my guides and my angels told me that no, I had to be on this apartment because it's not about me, it's about Desmond
Is
being
this the
here."
first time you've met her?
Second time.
Okay.
But, like, the first conversation I've had with her.
Yes. And you're
And,
right about your guides and angels. Yes.
yeah, and I was like, "But, I was told that I needed to look over the driveway, and I need to keep an eye, on what was going on in
We're
the comp"
told by
there's a lot of
who?
special
Who
needs
told?
kids that live here, right?
Uh-huh.
And she was just kinda like, "Okay." It's this language that you have to, eh, develop in order to talk to people who are just at the very beginning stages of wherever they're coming from based on, their past. Whether it's a religious background. If it's a religious background, it's actually easier to talk to somebody about a lot of these things, right? They already have the belief in the foundation of miracles and, like, angels and all that kind of stuff, right? So it's a little bit easier actually to talk to people who are, whether they're, like, just well versed in the religious aspect of things. Even though the whole archangel thing was, like, way above my head when I started hearing all of that kind of stuff, I was like, "Oh, I thought those were just made up stories," right? Because even in the Mormon religion, like, we don't talk about archangels at all. That's not a thing. That's like a Catholic thing, you know?
Too
And
bad.
now,
Mhm.
but here you and Rachel and I are sitting, at a coffee shop in where were we? San Antonio? Santa Fe,
Okay.
flipping tarot cards and like
No, they're
literally
angel
praying to
oracles.
the archangels.
Yeah,
And it was such a beautiful,
that was
magical
really cool. Mhm.
experience and all the guidance that they were giving us.
And it was
Mm.
so on, just on the
Yes.
nose. We were freaking out. That was so fun. I've been thinking I want to get an angel oracle deck because, like, my tarot cards are cool and all, but like, there's just that, like, there's like love interwoven
Yeah.
into the
Yeah.
messages. Yeah.
Well, and just that, like this is why I love like any faith that supports personal revelation, right? And these are the aspects of the LDS faith. And to me, there's two aspects of there's the LDS faith and then there's the Mormon church. And these are two different things to me. So when I talk about people who identify as Mormon and are like, the church is true and we have the fullness and our story about Jesus is the best and the Book of Mormon is like way supreme, and they're just stuck in their own world that separates them from everyone else because they're the only ones who believe they're going to the celestial kingdom, like all that kind of stuff. That's that's a completely different aspect of this faith system of just wanting to learn who Christ is and was, and the significance of his love and unconditional love in their life with him. Like, because that was all that I ever resonated with was the Christ consciousness aspect of the LDS faith, and it always ended there. When I even was the young women's president for 3 4 years and I was teaching on Sundays when it was my turn to teach, I wasn't one to always pull out scripture necessarily and like go off of the manual. It was what was my soul and my heart telling me that these girls who were in the trenches of life as a teenager in high school, being some of the oldie LDS in their entire high school, like, what message do they need to hear from me based on experiences I've encountered through my life going to some of those same schools in the city,
Mm.
with times being very, very different and still extremely hard. Also, being the mom of three teenage boys, one having special needs, but two older boys, really journeying through some hard stuff, and having a husband who was an alcoholic and bipolar and, emotionally abusive, but also not, not a member of the church. Right. And so, like, what I gave, what I knew how to give based on what I understood about the atonement with my own experiences and teaching them that they were loved unconditionally, no matter what. And that some church doctrine handbook, you know, that they had to check the dots off with, like, and I'm not saying anything bad about like personal progress or like, any of that stuff because it was all very enriching. You use the word divine nature today,
Right.
and it brings me back to those warm fuzzies and
Mhm.
those real soft-hearted moments growing up in the LDS faith that really, really resonated beauty within my soul. And then there's these other aspects of the judgment and the rules and
Mhm.
the doctrine and all this that I just never aligned with. And so, of course, having parents that were incredibly devoted to their church callings and having a big family, it was like, and then being held under those rules, them being raised Catholic previous in their own upbringing, it was like, yeah, of course Nate is, massively rebelling. Of course, I'm massively me rebelling. I get pregnant, drop out of high school. Of course, you massively rebel in high school. Like, because there was no space to allow us to, like, just be and experience life. We are just in this container and we are just confined. And what I think is so awesome is that you ended up attracting yourself to this podcast, but these two people where Stacy is actually a former LDS member.
Mhm.
And I just think that, of course,
Of
because
course.
that is just the similarities that you both share, that there's an instant understanding. I know exactly what you learned. I know exactly how you compressed it and
Mhm.
digested it throughout life, because I did too. And
Mhm.
it's really hard to go out in the world and say, yeah, I was raised LDS, or I was a part of the Mormon church, and it's like, well, where did you grow up in Utah, part of the Mormon church, or did luckily we grew up in the Midwest, right? And I can't even imagine the conditioning and the indoctrination with those people that actually grew up
You
in
say
Utah.
luckily, and it's interesting because I mean, you were also teaching the girls who also grew up and they're one of only a few members in their high school. And I wouldn't say that I ever felt lucky. Like I was always told that I was very lucky. And that's one thing that I struggled with for a long time is there's just this messaging and maybe not directly, but you certainly feel like, oh my gosh, I'm so blessed. I'm seriously so blessed. And but then when it comes to a space where you're like, actually, I don't feel so good, but I'm so lucky. Like I don't feel good, but I'm lucky. Like I'm I'm privileged, but I don't like, oh, I'm not being grateful enough. It's that's when it
Mm,
comes down to you're ungrateful. Or maybe I just like something's not right. And my programming is a little off and I'm not actually that lucky. And there's a different thing happening here. Um, but yeah, I mean, growing up, I mean, I was told I was lucky because I had standards and the other kids weren't raised with standards. And so I didn't, I wasn't, so then I could live a life where I was pure and chaste and protected, right? But I actually wasn't pure, chaste. I didn't feel safe. So um there was always this disconnect there. So and so then it just felt like I had to hide. And so then
mm,
I just hid and I continued to hide for decades, it seems like. Now I feel like no one knows the real me sort of complex that I have. And no one would accept the real me if they knew that, if they knew her, right? And so then the truth is scary. I can't share, I can't speak. And then it just kind of became this thing. But I know that I chose this for myself. And I know that there's a deep lesson to be learned here and that I'm in the process of implementing that wisdom so then I can become the wisdom. Then I can be the old crone with the great advice because I love
Sarah will love that.
can't wait to be that wise crone. So, um, yeah, it's just really interesting. So thinking back to like, what did those teenage girls need to hear? What did I need to hear?
Mhm,
Yeah, I think safety was a big thing.
mm,
You are safe to speak. You are safe to be whoever
mhm,
you want to be. You are safe to say no. You are safe to disagree. You're
mhm.
safe to wear what you want and say what you want. And you don't
That
have
is
to dance with every boy who asks you at the dance. You can say no. Like you don't have to do what the bishop tells you have to do as your punishment because
right.
whatever with your boyfriend, you don't have to do that shit. You can do whatever you want that feels
And
good.
you can come to an LDS dance
Mhm,
wearing whatever you want to wear and not be turned away if you're not wearing a dress or a tie.
mhm,
Right?
mhm.
Like, I
Like
can't, I mean, yeah.
Like it's cold outside. And so in my office building, they crank up the heat when it's cold outside, which is considerate and also kind of abusive. So I'm in my office and it is so freaking hot. And I'm just so glad that I have a tank top on underneath my sweater. But if I were
Mhm.
to wear a sweater, in this room just for the sake of modesty, right? So that I wouldn't offend anybody, which used to be my thinking. I'll suffer because then on camera, I'll at least look, right? I'll
Right.
do what I'm supposed to do. But
Right.
it's hot in here. And you know what? My shoulders look good. This is the
Yeah, you have great shoulders.
uh,
So with your Akashic Records reading, because I want to make sure we get in some like major highlights
mhm,
before we finish with this episode,
mhm.
which I think was amazing, to be honest with you. I feel
Yeah,
like we
this
talked
has
about
been
something.
really fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's
I
finish
love
this.
where our conversations lead.
I know. They make me happy.
Yeah. Yeah, so give us the highlights of the Akashic Record and then explain real quickly what they are for anybody who doesn't know. And then share like anything, whatever comes to you, whether you told me earlier or not, but like the biggest takeaways for being able to have them read for you or for you to have been able to access them and like how you want to move forward with some of the biggest takeaways from that.
Okay, let me know if I forget a question. So the Akash or the Akasha, I think it's called the Akash. I'm no expert, but it's the recording of the soul's journeys. So all of the past lives, all of the incarnations, all of what the soul has been through and experienced. You can do an Akashic reading for like a business or a home, for anything, for a person. So you can think of it as a library. It's a realm of information, and there are guardians and protectors of the information. So there's restrictions on actually entering another person's records without permission. You can actually be denied entrance in the future if you kind of break the rules, which I think is just really interesting and cool. But anyway, it's a place where you can learn more about what you've been through with soul contracts that you've made with people, why you're here, what you're doing here, missions, messages from your soul family and such. So I like barely scratched the surface today with my reading. They told me about some lives that I lived and experiences that I had, um, human and non-human, which was cool. Um, I'm not going to get into what they are. That's personal for now. And the girl's got to have her secret. And and a lot of messages, a lot of messages that I received were actually, like I said before, things that I already knew that really resonated. And they were kind of reminders because I do tend to doubt myself and give away my power. And so there were cautions there on protecting my energy. And when people are attracted to my vibration, then I need to be very discerning and careful who I share my energetic space with, because I actually am becoming a lot more sensitive. There's a lot of parts of me that are becoming more, that's weird to say. There's parts of me getting more sensitive. So the like smells, I can smell everything. Oh my gosh. And when I get really overstimulated when I go into certain spaces and I start really having a lot of thoughts and feelings that really aren't mine. And so there were some messages around that, messages around certain spiritual gifts that I have or that I've worked to develop in other lifetimes. Yeah, different experiences of trials. Like one life, I actually didn't have a voice. And one life, I lived alone because I was persecuted. I think I was a witch. That's awesome. So just different things that were cool and powerful and really beauty. You know what? It actually helped me to tune into my own beauty, my own soul's beauty. That was really cool. And if there's one thing that you can take away from any sort of reading, it's to like understand your own beauty and feel loved and recognize that I do have a lot of power. I really am held and guided, and that I'm not doing anything wrong, right? I'm not screwing anything up. So that's a big thing that I worry about often, is that I'm screwing it up. But I'm actually not. I'm actually in a really good place, and there's divine timing. Everything is working out as it should. Yeah, I thought it was cool. You've been
And
muted
I
the whole time, so I've just been talking and talking.
No, it was good. I was not going to interrupt you. Like that was awesome. What I was saying was it makes me want to go to reach out to them to go get my Akashic readings
Mm-hmm.
done and then, integrate those aspects that, I probably have been ignoring or kind of like pushing down or not really wanting to accept. I feel like I've been doing that a lot lately. And you're a shining example of just allowing yourself to see yourself. I think that is something we don't do in life very often is we don't allow ourselves to see ourselves because we're so worried about everyone else seeing us and having, praise and appreciation and acceptance from the outside world. And yeah, it's just and that's why it's a self journey. And that's why we're doing this again and again in so many different ways is because we're trying to master ourselves and master our own self-love and our own self divine acceptance and understanding. It's that soul growth work and that expansiveness. And for some of us, we're really going on some really deep explorative paths, and that is so okay. And for others, some people are in loops and old patterns and repeating one single lesson that they haven't figured out yet. Not to say that they're all karmic lessons, because we've been told we're moving into a time where we're not having to complete those karmic uh, lessons and ties or whatever, but there's still the trauma, there's still the pain, and there's still a lot of emotional baggage, even from just this life, that we need to heal from. Giving yourself grace and the ability to see or remembering of like your light and your beauty and just sitting with that and like accepting that and saying, that's me. I am like a star shining brightly.
Shining for the
For
whole.
the whole world to see. I can do and say happy things each day because I know Heavenly Father loves me.
The Mormons get it.
Yeah, they do. And there's so much truth there.
There is,
There's
and so
so
much
much.
beauty, and like
Yeah.
it's not, I tell people, like, I grew up knowing that I had a heavenly father that loved me. Like, there's no,
Yeah.
that's amazing. That's amazing
Yeah.
to know that I'm never alone.
And even the openness of accepting that there's a Heavenly Mother there, And
Mhm.
it's
I
like,
kind of are open to it.
yeah. Well, I guess it depends on the individuals within the LDS faith that you talk to. Like, I mean, there is even an LDS hymn that says, and,
Right.
the spirit tells me there's a mother there.
Mhm.
And that's just us, like, that's just the duality, that we experience within, defining genders here on the physical plane
I don't
when
even
in
think of
reality,
God as male now. Like,
no, I don't either. Yeah. Especially after listening to the Sophia Code and like, the womb of nothingness is all creation and the divine feminine aspect and like the important roles that the divine feminine and the divine masculine play together in the yin yang. I've been able to wrap my brain more and more and more around the concept of duality and what it is and what a divine intelligence and divine creator really is. And I think it's just going to be hard for a lot of people to make sense with, but it's really just dropping into your soul space, dropping into your heart space and not thinking about what makes sense, but feeling out what's true.
mhm.
And sometimes the truth is not going to make sense to the mind.
Oh no,
And
it doesn't.
that's the
No.
journey.
Yeah. Right. It's beyond the mind.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jesse, what is one challenge you have for our listeners after listening
Hmm.
to this?
Wow, that's a big question. Well, we talked a lot about our own self journeys, and how we show up in life. So that would be my challenge, is for whoever's listening to this to take some time and be very real
Mm.
with themselves and even write it down as to where they're absolutely showing up for themselves. Like, you always have to start with positive first, right? Like, where can you pat yourself on the back, or where can your higher self and you align and say, yeah, I'm I'm getting this. And then if you were to have a conversation with yourself sitting across from you, what would you say to you of the lies that you're telling yourself, or the, you know, the choices that you're making, to allow yourself to continue to stay distracted or to be suppressed or to avoid? 'Cause that's what I do. And so that would be my challenge, is, and I am actually going to do this. I'm going to do this tonight. I told you earlier on, Marco, that I started journaling, and it has already made a massive shift just in the last 2 days since I've journaled the last 2 mornings. And 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 the things that I've been writing down. I'm just so grateful for everything. Like, it just blows my mind how much I'm grateful for. But I can be grateful for a lot of stuff and still be in denial of who I truly am and the things that I need to work on. And so that would be my challenge, is for everyone, including myself, to write down the things that I'm doing that I'm like killing it. And I know that I'm killing it. But then what am I doing where I need to step up and be honest with myself?
That's so good. That's so good. And anyone who has made it this far through 2 episodes listening to us, thank you. And,
You're amazing.
but that means that they're also going through a shift like we are, or else it wouldn't resonate, right? Like,
Right.
if you made it if you made it this far, then that means you're also going on a shift, right? Like, that things are changing and you're not gonna be the same person in even a month, maybe, as you are today. And so that journaling element is just so important, because if you don't record this, you'll forget. You'll forget those little pieces of discovery that were so important on the way. And then recognizing those little moments, those little baby steps, really helps us to see how far we've come
Mhm.
and have a lot of empathy for other people in our circles and compassion. So I love that. I was going to say that one question I've been asking myself the past little while is, when I do things, I ask myself, am I doing this to be accepted? Or am I doing this because I want to? Mm, and I do a
Ooh,
lot
that's
of
a big
things to be
one.
accepted. And so remembering, am I in tune with my light? Am I seeing my beauty?
Mhm.
Am I seeing my beauty
Yes.
in the moment? Because if you're seeing your beauty in the moment, I, I imagine it would be really hard to be pushed off a ledge in a different direction that isn't authentic, right? If you see your true beauty. I even It's something I told my daughter to do, who's 8. When she gets really mad at her sister, I said, if you get really mad at one of us, just say, I love me, I love me, I love me, I love me, I love me. And she actually did it. And her brothers, my teenage boys, thought it was silly. And I was like, you know what? This shit works. I didn't say that, but like, it works. If you're mad at somebody, if you're feeling triggered, go in and bring in the love, right? I love me, I love me, I love me. And it helps. It
Oh,
seems
that's good.
so simple, but I feel like it helps just to like tune in and remember the loveliness of your soul, the beauty that
Mm,
is within you.
yeah, I love that. Mari's a little sponge. She really is. I'll never forget when you guys lived in Fairfax and Mark had left, and she was so sad. And she sat out on the patio with me after, saying goodbye and crying when she got into child's pose. Do you remember?
Yeah.
She got into child's pose and she stayed there for like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And I
She's
was like, she knew exactly what her body needed to regulate. She needed
Oh
to
my
go into that
gosh, she
place.
does. She knows what she needs. If you just support her and sit with her, she can go from crying to calm in just a few minutes, because if you just let her feel safe, then she'll snuff up the tears and be like, okay, can you help me with this thing?
Oh.
And then, yeah, and then we do it. And then it happens all the time. She just needs
Mhm.
support and trust. I think that's what our kids need. It's so hard.
Shit, that's what I need.
I know.
Like that makes me almost like want to cry because I'm like, I wish I could do that now.
I
Like be
know.
in a space where I'm like, can you help me with this? Like,
Trust
you know how
me.
hard it is to even imagine that right now? Because
Uh,
that's what I'm actually working through right now. This would be something to talk about when we go into the third episode, is like talking about relationships and shadow work. Cause I think
oh my
that's
gosh, let's do
a
it.
really, yeah, sweet.
Let's sleep
Okay, I
off.
love you.
Okay. Okay. Bye, everyone. Love you.
Okay, bye bye.
I love
We
you.
love you. Bye bye.